Hi, my name is Josh Abrio, and today I'm going to teach you about a market sizing case. A majority of consulting interviews will require you to do market sizing in some way, shape, or form. You can be given a market sizing question as a standalone case, though this is less frequent, or as part of a broader business situation case, like entering a new market. This case type is used to test your quantitative and reasoning skills. The interviewer wants to evaluate whether or not you're comfortable working with numbers, and whether you are capable of making good assumptions and handling ambiguity. It's important to note that there's no one correct answer to a market sizing case, but it's important to be in the right ballpark. That's within about 25% of the correct answer. However, what's more important than your answer is the approach that you take to solve the problem and the structure that you use. So now that you know a little bit more about a market sizing case, let's get into one. So the question we're doing today is how many bottles of wine are consumed in the US every year? And we're to assume there are 5 glasses in 1 bottle of wine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to segment population by age and then by profile. So I know there are 320 million people in the US. And I'd like to assume an average life expectancy of 80 years with an equal distribution of ages. This gives us 4 equal groups of 20 years each. The drinking age in the US is 21 years, which means that people from 0 to 20 are not eligible to drink, whereas people from 21 to 80 are eligible to drink. Given that the fact that we assumed an equal distribution of ages, that means that 1/4 of the population cannot drink, which is 80 million people, and 3/4 of the population can drink, which is 240 million people. Now I'd like to segment this population further by profile, or by the type of drinker they are. In my experience, there are 3 types of drinkers. People who don't drink at all, none, people who drink medium amount or moderate, and then people who are very heavy drinkers. In my experience, about 3/8 of the population, or 37.5%, don't drink alcohol at all. 50% of the population drinks alcohol a moderate amount, and 12.5%, or 1/8 of the population, drinks alcohol a lot, or are heavy drinkers. So I'd like to put these numbers into table format for easier calculation. So here we have none, we have moderate, and then we have heavy. The first column is going to be the percent of population. So we said earlier, none makes up 37.5% of the population, or 3/8 of the population. Moderate makes up 50% of the population, or 1/2 of the population, and heavy drinkers make up 12.5% of the population, 1/8 of the population. Now, keeping in mind that our total population was 240 million people, I'd like to determine the number of people in each of these categories using those percentages. So to do this, I'd like to multiply the percentage by 240 million people. So 3/8 times 240 is 90 million people. 1/2 times 240 is 120 million people. And 1/8 times 240 is 30 million people. Now I'd like to make some assumptions about the number of drinks per week that people in each of these categories consume. So on average, a person who drinks none consumes 0 drinks per week. Average, a person who's a moderate drinker drinks about 2 to 4 drinks a week. So let's say 3 drinks a week on average. And then a heavy drinker drinks about 10 drinks per week. So now we're going to calculate the total number of drinks per week. So to do that, we multiply the population by the number of drinks per week. So 90 times 0 is again 0. 120 times 3 is 360. It's 360 million. And 30 times 10 is 300. It's 300 million. Now, summing this up, we get a total of 660 million drinks consumed per week in this population. Now, it's important to note that in this question, we're asked about the amount of wine consumed, not the amount of drinks consumed. In my experience, beer and wine are the 2 most common alcoholic beverages consumed in the US, with hard liquor coming in a distant third. I'd like to assume that beer makes up 1/3 of all alcohol consumption, and wine makes up the other third of all alcohol consumption, leaving hard liquor to make up the rest. So with that assumption in mind, taking that 660 million figure and dividing it by 3, because we're assuming that 1/3 of all alcoholic beverages consumed are wine. So that gives us 220 million glasses of wine consumed in the US every week. Now we were asked for an annual figure, so I'd like to annualize that 220 million by multiplying it by the number of weeks in a year. There are 52 weeks per year, but just for ease of calculation, I'd like to multiply it by the number of 50. So 220 multiplied by 50 is the same as multiplying 110 by 100, and that gives us 11,000. And it's important to note that 220 figure was a million, so that's 11,000 million or 11 billion. So 11 billion glasses of wine are consumed in the US per year. Now we were asked not for the number of glasses consumed, but the number of bottles consumed. And we were given the fact that there are 5 glasses in one bottle of wine. So I'd like to take that 11 billion figure and divide it by 5. So dividing 11 by 5 gives us 2.1 billion. So on average in the US, 2.1 billion bottles of wine are consumed every year. And that's how you do a market sizing.